everyone falls for hype. And I'm seeing a lot of that for War Machine, but not buying it.
Is it worth it?
What's up, nerds? Let's just jump right in. War Machine is a 4 energy 6 power card that reads on reveal until the end of your next turn. Nothing can stop you from playing cards anywhere. Overall impressions. Well, other people's impressions are they're treating this card like the best thing since 2002 Christina Aguilera. But I just don't see it. Sure, everything is Jeff for a turn, which can be a powerful effect. But the fact that Lockdown just doesn't cut it anymore with cards like Miss Marvel and Vision and Jeff itself existing kind of hurts the whole War Machine stops Lockdown argument. And then the whole oh, you could play Giganto and Infinite without drawbacks. Really? You're just gonna make a deck that's War Machine and Infinite and what?
I don't know, man.
It's just 10 other cards? That's what makes a card good? Is the fact that you can play one big thing with it? No. I will admit there are going to be scenarios where this card is super duper good, and there are going to be games where you lose to an Infinite played in the middle on turn 6 after they played a War Machine or a Coal Obsidian without a 1-cost card on the lane. Thinking about scenarios like that, I don't think outweigh the fact that most of the time this card is just going to be a decent tech card. Alright, on to the mechanics of War Machine. So for this section, I just have pulled up the cards that are going to be affected by or enabled by War Machine. And by looking at some of these cards, yes, War Machine will be powerful and effective at some point, but really this list is a lot smaller than you probably initially thought. The top 4 cards here are cards that put restrictions on you from playing into a lane. Electro and Sandman count towards the fact that, much like Jeff, you can play 2 cards even if Sandman is on the battlefield, but who plays Sandman nowadays anyway? No one. And then these other cards are cards that you can abuse with War Machine. Sentry, you could play it in the right-hand lane. It's not really going to do anything though because the Void goes over there, and if you're playing Sentry, you're probably playing Annihilus, so whatever. Ebony Maw, cool. I will say that's cool. That's probably the best use for War Machine. I feel like if you run War Machine, you probably should just run Ebony Maw. And then you have Coal Obsidian, Giganto, Infinite, and Crossbones. But why would you ever play Crossbones? I don't know. And then there are about 10 locations that War Machine also does. What? There are 10 locations that are also affected by War Machine. It's not all negative though. Let's check out the good parts of War Machine. And by the way, to clarify, I'm not trying to be negative about War Machine. I'm just trying to point out the fact that this card is not everything he seems to be. At least I don't think he is. Anyways, the first point here is he's generically good tech. Now I think this is the actual strength of the card. Much like Shang-Chi is in a bunch of decks, I think War Machine could end up in a bunch of decks just because it solves a pretty big problem for a lot of matchups. Really, if War Machine starts being generally played, Storm and Professor X will literally never exist again. There's no point in those cards ever being in the game again, thanks to War Machine, which is a pretty good plus. And if you're a deck that just doesn't deal with locations well, War Machine could be an alright tech to deal with stuff like we were talking about earlier, Crimson Cosmos, Space Throne, stuff like that. There are decks that don't handle location variants very well, and their only options really would be like Legion or Scarlet Witch. But I could see War Machine taking those spots in just generically good mid-range, good cards type decks. The second point here is big plays. There will be some funny ass posts and memes on Twitter after War Machine comes out of people doing Infinite stuff, or playing a Giganto in the middle, or dropping Ebony Maw and Coal Obsidian on the last turn of the game. It seems kind of crazy, but is it really? I don't know. But War Machine does give you the potential to have some really absurd turn 6s that the opponent just doesn't know where to contest or what to expect. The last point here is Zabu.
Come, brother. I will need your strength.
Zabu's just a really solid card, and War Machine is a 4-cost card. And that's what I was saying earlier. I think War Machine is going to find its real home after all the memes and the fun stuff goes away, and you figure out where a card is actually good, 3 days after a card comes out. I think it's going to be in a Zabu mid-range shell, probably some deck that's running like Shang-Chi, War Machine, Iron Lad, Coal Obsidian, and then like Darkhawk as the 5-drop. That's probably where War Machine is going to end up, and that's why I have it here under Zabu. And then the last point, I kind of already brought this up. I guess this is just to reiterate the fact that just the existence of War Machine, it makes it to where like if you play Storm and Professor X for the next at least 72 hours after War Machine comes out, you're an idiot. Now, what are the bad parts about War Machine? The first point I have here is he's much more limited than you think. I sort of brought this up in the mechanics with the cards that he interacts with, but basically, you know, you think, oh, Infinite Ebony Maw, that's awesome. What are the other cards? And then you look and it's like Coal Obsidian, which isn't hard to put down into play already, and then Giganto, and like those are the cards you can really abuse with War Machine. And then the stuff it stops is Goose, Jean Grey, Storm, and Professor X. How often do you really see those cards in the current metagame? And also, how often will you see them after War Machine comes out? So just the fact that War Machine exists is going to make those cards much less attractive. So really, what is War Machine doing other than existing to stop people from playing the archetypes that War Machine is good against? The second bad is it's low power. It's 6 power. I mean, it's more power than other tech cards like Enchantress, and that's it, really? Because Shang-Chi, yeah, he's 3 power, but he kills something that's 10 power. So Shang-Chi is literally a 413 bare minimum. And then my last point here is he doesn't make a deck or an archetype, in my opinion. I could be proven wrong, but I don't think just War Machine coming out is just going to make some new deck that becomes meta and really good. I don't think he actively makes good decks now like that much better. What he does is stops annoying strategies and maybe helps you get into some locations and fix variance issues that certain type of decks have. All right, on to a potential deck list for War Machine. I was trying to think of a deck that could like actually use War Machine instead of just using him as like anti-lockdown card, and I think this is your best bet. So we have Ebony Maw, Coal Obsidian, and Giganto to sort of take advantage of War Machine. Also, you should keep in mind that with War Machine, you can then play stuff into your Ebony Maw lane. So playing out your Ebony Maw early is just totally fine with War Machine in your deck. And then we have Giganto on the top end because I just think that being able to play out your Giganto on the last turn, regardless as if you had War Machine or not, is better than playing Infinite for that extra 6 points. Like, it's a little greedy. And if you don't have War Machine, then you can't play your Infinite at all. So that's why Giganto's in there instead of something like Infinite. Then we have Nebula to pair with the Ebony Maw. You can just put both those in a lane, and it's still like quite a bit of power for the opponent to have to deal with. And then we have Miss Marvel and Omega Red just to spread power out across the board, because we know we have some stuff that goes tall, so we're just trying to go wide a little bit. But yeah, I think if you're just trying to be safe and test how good War Machine actually is, this deck is actually, I think, could be pretty solid, but that's mostly because it's just a good cards mid-range deck rather than a deck that's trying to meme and dream. All right, on to the Spotlight Cache and my recommendation on whether or not you should get War Machine. So yes, I've been talking down about War Machine, but more so about like how I don't think it's as good as everyone says, but it's still a good card. So as far as tokens go, I think War Machine's going to be a generically decent card that like will always see some play in some fashion or another. I don't think it's a card that's just never going to get used. So it's like Iron Lad, I guess, a little bit. Iron Lad's just much better of a card. But it's like if you spend 6k tokens on a card like Iron Lad, I know it's not 6k tokens right now, or maybe it is, I don't know. But yeah, the point stands. If you were to spend 6k tokens on a card like Iron Lad or War Machine, that's just like probably always going to find a home at some point, regardless of how busted or not busted it is. It's a pretty good use of tokens. But I would say overall wait. If you're strapped for tokens and you're not sure, I would say wait a day or two to see if War Machine is actually like as solid as I think he's going to be, or if it turns out you can actually abuse War Machine with some silly deck. As far as using your keys go and opening Spotlight caches, I would kind of say the same thing. Mostly because Silver Sammy and Silk like just are meh, really. Silver Samurai is not necessary like in any deck. And Silk is only played in like those Craven tempo decks that are just not really that great right now. So if you don't have Sammy or Silk, I don't think you have to try to open all 4 caches here, because they're just, you don't need those to be a competitive player in Marvel Snap. And opening 4 just for War Machine, I would say it's worth it if you are just really hype about this card, or if you wait a couple of days and see that he's a solid card, then you can you know, spin the four keys to try and get War Machine. Alright, that's the video. Thank you so much for watching. This is a weird week because War Machine's like, it's obviously a decent card. I don't think it's everything everyone thinks it is though. So it is sort of weird being like, this card isn't as good as everyone says it is, and I shit on it for like 8 minutes, but it's still a good card. Just keep that in mind. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. Check out my sponsors in the description below. And also, if you want to support me, consider becoming a member of the channel. You get 10% off my merch, and also I will love you forever and shout you out at the end of the video. So thanks. Later, guys.